And hi, Mr. Gray. How are you, sir?
Uh-oh, Ed?
Oh,
yeah, where's it? There he
he
is. There's that handsome man.
He's muted. Let me unmute him. Heather, did you make him a co-host? He went off and back on.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can.
I lost all power in my PC.
Oh,
wow.
no.
Yep, exactly. So I had to move to another device.
Okay, so we have one more minute.
Okay.
So you should be seeing our screen. So for everyone that's joining us, thank you so much for our patience. I know due to COVID-19, we have to be, make sure that we're safe. And we're doing a lot of these town halls via Zoom or Facebook Live. And so we appreciate your patience. If you're on our Facebook page, thank you for joining us. Just a reminder to participants, we're going to be letting people into the from the waiting room. We'd appreciate if you mute yourselves. And then if you have any questions, you can always share it into the chat. My name is Heather Puen. I'm the communications chair for the Tarrant County Democratic Party. And it looks like it's 5 o'clock. I do a lot of the housekeeping stuff here. So if you are joining us, whether it's on Facebook or on Zoom, please mute yourselves. You can ask questions. Please ask them into the chat and we'll make sure that we get your questions answered. If we don't get to it, I'll make sure that we send it to the candidate and Kim's team, and they'll be able to get back with you on that. So to get this started, you are in the right place if you're here for the virtual town hall with our TX24 candidate, Kim Olson, and we are happy to have this event moderated by Ed Gray. So welcome, everyone.
Kim Olson here. They say true warriors rarely pick their battles, they're chosen for them. When I joined the Air Force, I wanted to fly jets, but they said I couldn't go to flight school because I was a woman. Well, that was my first battle. I fought to get the policy changed so that I could go to flight school and every woman after me. I flew all over the world, became an instructor pilot teaching airmen to fly supersonic jets, and was among the first women to command an operational flying squadron. My call sign was Jet Mom. During the Kosovo conflict, I was put in charge of coordinating the air refueling airspace for 80 different types of aircraft from 17 countries in the largest bombing campaign since World War II, a battle we won without a single loss of life. That earned me a promotion to colonel and an assignment to the Pentagon overseeing a $220 billion budget. Just when I thought my deployment days were over, 9/11 happened, when an airplane exploded into the Pentagon just around the corner from me. I was sent to the front lines of Iraq to rebuild. I gotta tell you, it was a cluster. There was no reconstruction plan, no political foresight. Our government couldn't even pay the security detail protecting Americans. The warrior in me did what I had to do to get the security team paid and save lives. For that, I was reprimanded. But I took full responsibility because I'm an accountable, no excuse leader. And when it comes to saving lives, it's a decision I would make again. I returned to the Pentagon, where another battle awaited me, investigating sexual misconduct in our ranks, then modernizing the Air Force's policy on sexual assault. So many of us knew how bad it was and that it had to be fixed. After 25 years, I retired honorably as a full colonel and came home to Texas, where I was recruited and served in the Texas State Guard, helping families in need. But we soon discovered there were Texas veterans in need, so another battle arose. Even though we had fought to open the doors for women to serve in combat, other doors were still closed when they came home. After multiple combat deployments, women faced staggering suicide rates, unemployment, and homelessness. Women who went to war to protect American streets were now living on them with their children because there was nowhere safe to go and no one to turn to. So I helped start and create Grace After Fire, a nonprofit that took on the VA and state government to get our veterans and their families the care they deserve. We helped thousands of veterans get back up on their feet. Our work got me inducted into the Texas Women's Hall of Fame. It was humbling to see my portrait next to all those trailblazers who fought battles of their own. Now, I'm running for Congress because this president is attacking everything we fought for over the years. We didn't choose this battle, it chose us. And if you believe it's a battle worth fighting, be a warrior. Join us.
Wow. Wow, that's incredible. Well, this is Deborah Peoples, your Tarrant County Democratic Chair. And if you didn't guess it already, you're in for a treat this afternoon because you're being joined by two of my absolute favorite people in the whole wide world. So joining us as moderator for this discussion this evening is one of the most amazing warriors in the fight for justice that you will ever meet. He has an amazing radio show called The Commish Show. He's frequently seen on network television, giving his opinion about things. He is extraordinary. And so I am so grateful to have Ed Gray join us this evening as a moderator. And in case you did not know it, Kim Olson is one of my very favorite people. She's simply extraordinary for what she's willing to do and to help. And so I'm going to stop talking. And because today was the first day of early voting, and we want you to know about that. But I also want you to hear from these two incredibly gifted human beings. So good evening, Commish, take it away.
Good evening, good afternoon. How you guys doing? This is Ed Gray of the Commish Radio Show. I'm so honored to be here with, the Tarrant County Democratic Party and also Colonel Kim Olson. I don't even know what title to call her. When I first met her, it was Kim, and it was like, no, this lady's so awesome. In the Texas Women's Hall of Fame, she's done a lot of great things for our country. Thank you, Kim, for your service. I'm going to be moderating here just for a short period of time, and you guys didn't come here to see me because you can catch me on those archives of Inside Texas Politics, where you can catch me at 9 on 8. But today's the first day of voting, and I have my pen and I'm ready to roll with that. So I'm so glad to have Kim Olson here. Kim has done, as I stated before, a great job for our country. She's also done a great job in corporate America as well. And she's also been a past candidate for office. But today she's wanting to turn Texas blue. And I'm so old, I remember when the 24th Congressional District was blue, when it had Martin Frost. We have an opportunity now to go ahead and turn it back blue again. Kim, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
All
Thank you
right.
for coming on the show.
Not a
Thanks for
problem.
coming on the show, Ed.
Hey, you know what we're going to do? We're going to spend a couple of minutes, just you and I and the American people, talking about yourself and about your campaign. First of all, I just want you to know I didn't get one of those kits that you had, but I went out and I was totally masked up and everything. This COVID-19, how has it affected your campaign?
Well, I think it's affected my campaign the rest of the way it's affected the rest of Texans. You know, you pivoted to doing most of your work virtually. If you'll allow me, let me run real quick what the campaign's been able to do since this started in March. You know, I thought to myself, you know, what would we do if we were the sitting congresswoman and this hit our district? And so we just stepped in and exercised the leadership skill set that I, have and grown, and my resume is full of areas in which I've done just exactly this. You step into crises and you lead. And so we did what a lot of folks would expect you to do. We made 5,000 wellness calls. We translated CDC language CDC into 7 different languages. You know, we speak about 15 of them here in CD 24. We did mass drives, we did food drives, we worked with the Power People, with the Beto campaign, doing about 100 hours of food banking over there in Tarrant. We've also worked very hard. Hell, we've had more town halls in the past, 90 days, about 14. We'll have our 15th one on Wednesday than Kenny Marchant held in his entire 10-year career that he had in this district. And so we're really proud of being able to bring information to help constituents. We standed up a advisory council with leaders within our district and brought in folks from, the medical part, faith-based organizations in order to help first responders like nurses and doctors by bringing them lunches and food, and work with the Muslim community around ensuring that people are well fed and cared for. And I think it's just really comforting because right now in our nation, Ed, now close this up, we have a confidence in leadership. We have a crisis of confidence in leadership in both the national level, I would offer at the state level right now. And I think the leadership and exercising that is the most important thing for the Texans and the American people. Good question.
Why are you running? Is it because of the crisis of leadership in Washington, or is it the crisis of leadership in the 24th?
I think the reason I'm running, because COVID didn't start till after we got well through our primary, is because, look, I have a core value of service before self. I spent 25 years in the United States Air Force serving my country, a trailblazer as being one of the first women to fly fighter type jets and to fly in the Air Force. And I opened doors for women to then, be able to fly in those fighters that you saw. Then I came back home to Texas and served in the Texas State Guard for a number of years, helping Texas families, and worked in education. I have an education degree. I believe that public education is the greatest things we do in this country for our young people. And finally, when we were coming back from places like Iraq and Afghanistan, I saw a need for our women vets and their families because they weren't getting the services that they had earned. So I worked in the nonprofit world, making sure that women had equitable access to care. And so I think my entire life's journey as an adult has been about serving others. And that's what I intend to do here, Ed, and the rest of you that are listening from Tarrant County, is that I intend to serve the constituents of X24 and, by the greater extension, Texans in the United States. And I think having that varied background and that powerful leadership experience is just so needed today. So I am driven to serve, Ed. That's the bottom line.
Driven to serve. Now that's a great way to go ahead and segue into our next question. One of the feedback that we received from some of the people that submitted questions was regarding your education, regarding managing the DISD budget. And could you go ahead and speak on that? Your opponent is running a TV and digital ad accusing you of mismanaging the DISD budget and then firing hundreds of teachers.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to clear that up. First of all, if any of you have read the Dallas Morning News article, I think it does an excellent job laying out what really happened in that. I want to remind those that are watching this that, like my opponent, I signed a pledge that I would not go negative. I don't think that is helpful to the Democratic Party, and I don't think it's helpful to our common cause, because the real clear and present danger happens to be the man in the White House and then his protege that is going to run in TX24. So I'd like to remind everybody of that. The Dallas ISD had struggled for many years before I got there with its budget. We worked very, very hard to try to decrease classroom sizes so that kids could have a greater chance at academic achievement, which is why I think most public schools exist, is for the students to do better. And the greatest thing that they can have standing in front of them, of course, is that teacher in the classroom. I have a degree in teaching. I've spent years in a classroom, and I have a mom who spent 50 years in public school system. So I know about public ed. And unfortunately, the board and the administration overextended itself in trying to help students. And when they found that out, they had gotten a new auditor. And when they found that out, they were required to make them fit the budget. TEA requires that you can't overspend what you don't have. And unfortunately, we had to then have a reduction in force. And my team, HR, worked very, very hard to save hundreds and hundreds of jobs. And those that we couldn't, we tried very hard to move them then into different school systems. So Anybody that knows anything about public education and how large bureaucracies work like that would understand that the person in the HR is actually one that helps teachers in their career, not the one that actually runs those budgets. And I think, like I said, the Dallas Morning News and those that were with me in the trenches understand that and have explained that quite clearly.
Now, we're talking about the 24th Congressional District. What are the boundaries of the 24th?
So if you take TX24 and kind of blow a rectangle it around the Dallas airport, that's a kind of a simplification of our district. It encompasses basically 10 cities all around it. It has Addison, it has Bedford, Colleyville, Coppell. It has Denton up to the north, just the southern portion of the Denton County. It has Euless. It has a portion of Farmers Branch. It has Grapevine in it. It has Hearst and Irving, and then it has South Lake in there. I'm missing one of the C's. I do my C's. I got Coppell, Colleyville, and there's one more C in there. Carrollton, there you go, the big one. And so it's a wonderful district. It is all urban and suburban. Its center point is the Dallas airport, basically, which is kind of the economic power of this district. Transportation and our airport, it brings about $276 billion in revenue to our district. It also has aerospace, meaning defense aerospace, which has Lockheed to the south, even though it's out of our district right there in Tarrant with you all, but many people live. They live in the HEB area up in our district in Hearst. You also have Bell Helicopter, which sits right in the district. And then just to the west is Ebert, which is a drone company. People live here too. On the other side in Dallas County, as you know, you have Addison up there in the north, and that's a hub for moving overnight cargo. Actually, my husband flew out of there for many a year. So we've been working in and out of this district for a number of years. And finally, you know, it's an incredible hub as far as transportation moving north and south to our number one and number two trading partner, which of course is Mexico and Canada respectively. So we are a wonderful, diverse, robust, and even economically stable district. And we better send somebody who understands the complexity of it to DP if we want to make sure we can hold on to our economic powerhouse as we go through this COVID and this crisis we're fixing to face. Long answer.
If there was a test on the cities in the district, you definitely won that test on that one, because that was quite a bit. Now, one of the cities is, if I'm not mistaken, is Irving, correct? And the former mayor of Irving is one of the candidates running for Congress on the Republican side. What do you think separates you the most from her?
Everything. It's the short answer, Ed. Look, she was endorsed by Trump right before the primary. And I just want to say, in that quarter when she was endorsed by the President of the United States, this campaign still outraised her in funding. And I think that's a sign of where we are and is a litmus test to the kind of leader that this district wants. And I'll say this, the very first commercial she sent out was about putting people in jail. She's very anti-immigrant. She's very anti-Muslim. If you read her history, she is not one that will bring this district together and work for a common good for everybody in here. She is actually very much like our president, a divider, divisive, hateful rhetoric around different groups of people. And so I think there is an absolute fundamental clear choice between someone who has had a long, extensive political career than one who's had one where she served everybody else and not herself, that I have put service before self. And that is probably the defining thing between myself and Van Dyne.
All right. With the recent Supreme Court decision upholding DACA, what kind of path to citizenship? You talked earlier about putting service above self. The ultimate service is citizenship. What would you propose for the Dreamers?
Well, I must just say that I was just so pleased with the court's decision to not allow Trump to basically dismantle DACA. And just for those that are watching, he can't, they said he couldn't do it. Doesn't mean he can't reattack that. If he's reelected, he can go back to the court and ask for the dismissal of that. So what's really important is to remember is that even though the Supreme Court has allowed for that, and it's stayed, I believe, for 2 years. First of all, DACA citizens, those young people who came to this country by their parents' freedom, are citizens in everything but documentation. They've gone to school, they contribute to our economy, they contribute to the growth and the incredible and diversity of this great country, and they should be given citizenship. And it is important that we keep immigrants coming into our country. They bring a rich, wonderful, work ethic that comes in. They bring from the high end, the doctors, the engineers, to those that build our homes, to those that repair our roads. I mean, we need immigrants if we are going to have a robust economy in Texas and in this nation as a whole. And DACA is a part of that strategy.
Now, I have a long list of President Trump's, things that he wanted to reverse from the Obama administration. There they are right there. So I'll go ahead and go to the next question that's coming off of that one as well. This is regarding the Affordable Care Act. The Trump administration and Texas Republicans have led the fight against the Obamacare. What's your stance on this health care?
Well, I think we should expand ACA. I think it is one of the signature of the Obama administration, that we are a strong enough, rich enough country that everyone should have access to quality, affordable health care. And almost all Americans agree with that. How we get to that end state, we can work on the details. But at the end of the day, if COVID has shown nothing else, it shows the incredible gap of workers who we needed to go to work, like the truck drivers, those that were stocking the grocery stores, those that were cleaning our hospitals, those that were working on the front lines of this COVID battlefield that we find ourselves. And yet they were the ones that didn't have access to healthcare, that they were the ones that couldn't get in to get tests to make sure they were going to be safe, that they were the ones who at the end of the day suffered the most from this COVID. And it is absolutely appalling in this country in 2020 that we can't cover everyone with some kind of quality health care. And the second thing that we should do, which again, COVID has shown, is that we have the capacity, if we get this right, in order to bring telemedicine so families can have access to their providers. And I'll give you a little rabbit trail here where I just was off the phone with a mental health provider. Do you know, y'all, that our suicide rate during COVID has actually gone down? You want to know why? Because people are actually talking to their counselors and their mental health advisor workers online, that they actually get quicker access to them, that they don't have to get in a car, make an appointment, go sit in a waiting room somewhere when it's all they can do to get out of bed in the morning, that they're able to get up online and talk to people. And for me, as a veteran, that is so important, because y'all, we lose 22 vets a day due to suicide, and that rate actually is providers in a time because we've actually opened up this telemedicine. So there, even though COVID is exposed this incredible, gap we have between those that don't have healthcare and those of us that do, what it's also done is provided us an opportunity in which we can leverage some of technology to help those that are the most vulnerable. And I say, send somebody to Congress that understands that, and let's get this done.
Now, one of the questions that was sent to us as well, and I'll read it in its entirety, is possibly a three-part question, if you will. So it's what kind of changes would you like to see on the federal level as it pertains to managing gun reform, as well as domestic abuse, and reducing the number of victims of family violence?
That's a great question. And I'll tell you, Ed, again, as a combat vet, I've been very forceful in saying that weapons of war don't belong on the streets of America. And I'm unapologetic about it. I've been trained on them. I've been shot at by them, and I know what they're meant to do. And what's also interesting, and I really think gun reform is about a woman's issue at the end of the day, because many children And many women find themselves on the other side of a barrel of a gun, and we end up destroying families and hurting people. So the first thing that I just want everyone to know is that Colorado Supreme Court just upheld that they are allowed to cap the high capacity magazines from 15 and below. So for the first time in our country, the Supreme Court from Colorado came out, and that was because of the Aurora shooting in the theater. So that is working its way through the court system. But just for a frame of reference, I have been, I'm a candidate of distinction from Moms Demand Action in every town. I agree wholeheartedly with their recommendations, which are these. Number one, everyone gets a background check, full stop. Everybody, you want a weapon, you get a background check. The second is that we close the loopholes around private gun sales. You can't get a hold of weapons that shouldn't have them. And that under the domestic abuse piece, it's the red flag laws, as they call it. I think it's been almost 30 days on we have passed red flag laws. Somebody needs to red flag laws. And so sometimes it's challenging, our men and women in blue to okay. Anyway, sometimes a challenge to execute those orders, but I think these are things that we could work on. And again, I see this in our improper weapons. Y'all, we lose hundreds of kids a year due to gun violence, and we have to do something about it. And at the end of the day, we are a nation in which our children should not have to do active shooter drills in their schools, that we should have the backbone, political courage, if we have the political will and the leadership to address this systemic problem of gun violence in our country.
That brings me to the next question, gun violence in this country. And one of the things that we have seen as of late has been policing in the United States. In the wake of police killings of George Floyd, that obviously wasn't done through gun violence, but Breonna Taylor's murder was done by gun violence, and the racist killing of Ahmaud Arbery was done by gun violence as well. The Congressional Black Caucus has put forth legislation to include numerous policies regarding anti-lynching and increased police training, a ban on chokeholds, among the other items that are being considered. What would you propose in order to stop the racial profiling by police and reform the criminal justice system?
Well, I do agree, the House passed police reform the other day. I think it was last week. They passed a wonderful bill addressing exactly that. From our campaign, and if you'll just go to kimforcongress.org, right there I have almost a 14-point statements on broken down in two segments. One is around the police, reforming the police, and number two is around reforming the justice system, because I think you must work them both in tandem. And so to your point around getting rid of some of the tactics that are used by the police, to include, to your point, the chokeholds, I really am concerned, again, as a senior officer, watching the militarization of our police force. For the price of an armored vehicle that some police forces have, you could have mental health providers. You could have, what has happened today is because now our prisons have become the drug rehab centers and the mental health institutions. This is where most of these folks end up, and this isn't good for our society. And it's certainly not good for the folks that are in these situations. Two, around justice reform, in reforming our justice system, look, we all understand we have systemic racism in this country. And the only way you fix that is with systemic changes to this country. And that has to happen, back to my point, with leaders who have the political will and the backbone to stand up and say, no, we are going to change the bond system. We are going to change our prison systems. We're not going to let it be for profit, meaning that there's more incentive to keep you in prison than there is to let you out and have you know, some kind of training system that you can go and earn a job and move on in your life. And so I think it's really important that you tackle both ends of the spectrum around what we're doing today. And again, one more thing, Ed, to your point, I just, you know, I don't think anyone, I hope, let me just reframe it. I hope there is no one in America that watched that film of George Floyd and not just have your heart broken as a mother, but be enraged as an American citizen that justice today, that Lady Justice really isn't blind and the scales she holds are not balanced. And that's what we've got to get back to.
Now, you took some heat recently from your statements, and they were somewhat strong in support of the protesters and against the use of the military, you just stated just a minute ago, in our streets. Republicans have accused you of supporting the looters, of supporting looting. What actually happened during that?
Well, again, that statement was taken out of context. I had a 4-minute long answer to a question very similar to what you're going to say. And allow me to clarify it, because I'm not going to walk back from what I believe, which is number one, the militarization of the police is a mistake. When I look at Lafayette Square and you're using a Black Hawk helicopter to suppress protesters who are exercising their First Amendment right and using tactics we used in the military in the middle of Baghdad to get rid of insurgents, there is something going wrong in our country. That's number one. Number two is looting and destruction of property isn't good for anyone. However, when the President of the United States makes a statement of when you loot, we shoot, that means he's advocating for summary execution on the street of America. And whether you like it or not, we have a rule of law and there are processes in place. There is fines if you do that. But what there isn't is you don't get to kill people in the streets of America because you don't happen to like their behavior. That I stand by, because I didn't wear a uniform for 28 years in order to watch the Constitution and the laws that come underneath it get ripped apart by a president who doesn't either respect it or understand the oath that he took.
Kind of fired up on that one, I see. You can go on and on and on.
I do.
Serving in the military, that's fine. Serving in the military, do you believe that President Trump is misusing the military for political purposes?
Well, I echo many of the things that senior leaders have said about our commander-in-chief right now, to include the General Maddox is out there and other generals that work closely with them. You are the commander-in-chief of the most powerful military in the world, and to use them to clear people, again, who are using their First Amendment rights and lawfully protesting so you can get a photo op. Yes, Ed, I would say you are absolutely misusing the military for your personal gain, not for the political will of the people of the United States, because the military is simply one instrument of political power, but it is exercised for the power of Americans, not for your political gain. And I think that's what concerns so many of us that served in the military and understand what happens when the checks and balances that are put in place just get disregarded, or the other side doesn't have the backbone to stand up against them and say, no, this isn't right. This is not how a nation should work. We're going to be in trouble. And so I am very, very concerned, as are a number of our folks. And I'll just remind those of you that are watching, I'm retired, but I have a son who wears a uniform today. So when I hear things like the president looked the other way while Russia put bounties out on our soldiers that are serving in harm's way, you better believe that gives me grave concern about what is going on within this administration.
Now that we're talking about this administration, what this administration prides itself is obviously support of the military and support of the police as well. One of the things this administration prides itself on is the economy. What would you do if you were elected to help the economy come back? Because right now it seems like we're losing a lot of jobs these days due to COVID. What would you do?
You know, and I think we have to look at where we are as Texas. And I'll remind everyone, when we went into our economic decline in 2008, Texas actually held on okay. And she held on all right because oil at that time was running at about $100 a barrel. So what the rest of the country suffered, Texas didn't suffer that well. Well, today, guess what? Oil is sitting at $35 a barrel. Many of those places out in Midland and West Texas have shut down. Yes, our gas sits at, $1.90 or whatever, but the market is absolutely flooded because both Russia and Saudi Arabia just poured oil into the system, driving down the cost of a barrel of oil, almost breaking the back of America, even though she can supply herself with oil. And that comes from the fact we don't have good relationships, that we didn't work trade things, that we allowed people to run over the top of us as a foreign policy environment. And so now we're hurting here in Texas. And so there's a couple things. One is we can have an opportunity to change things. We could do energy in which we leverage, say, solar, wind, and alternative energy sources and move higher paying, better jobs and work that into our education system. That's number one. Number two is we're going to have to help those small and mid businesses in order to get them to either hang on until the economy starts bubbling back up, and two, give them loans like we've been doing. But you're hearing complaints about that, we gave all the loans to the big corporations and we didn't give any to the mid and the smaller business owner who could do really well with just $25,000. They could hold payroll for a couple months or keep people employed. So I think it's really important because here's the thing, small business and entrepreneurs are the biggest movers and they're the best employers because that's the growing economy right now, are these small business people. So I really think that it's important we look down into our district. Now, we've gotten loans out. They've done, I'm sure we're going to have another, tax, tax movement, or we'll help people get loans in order to hold up our businesses. But at the end of the day, I think large corporations should pay their fair share of taxes. So when you ask me, Ed, what's something you would do? Number one is let's get these big corporations to pay their fair share, because all of us paid our federal taxes. And that's how they have highways to drive on and airways to fly with, and the Navy out there making sure the shipping lanes are okay. We all contributed into these very large multi-bajillion-dollar corporations so they could earn a profit. And I'll tell you something else that's happening right now, and I know it because of the nonprofits I've been talking to around business. Most corporations will say, we just work for the stakeholders, those that own stock. This is our customer and that's all we care about. And I think what this whole movement has shown is that you better care about your community. You better care about those that shop there, those that work there, that this is about, that you are in a greater community besides just your stakeholders. And all of a sudden, corporations are pivoting towards that. And I think we should help them in that regard, Ed.
Now, this campaign, you had earlier stated that we don't go after fellow Democrats. We're going to be on the up and up. This campaign also seems to be about a moderate and a centrist, moderate centrist versus someone that's a little bit more liberal. Where do you actually stand on the spectrum? Where do you stand at? What can you do to win people who are more liberal than you over to your side?
You broke up a little bit. You're asking me kind of where I am on the spectrum of being a Democrat. Is that what you asked?
Correct.
Yeah.
Where you at as a moderate or a liberal in the Democratic Party? And also, follow-up question on that: what can you do to win the other side over?
The other side, you mean the GOP or with
the Democrat side?
The other side of Democrats? We have another side. There's
yes.
Three of us.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
Okay, I think I get the gist of the question here. So let me frame that question this way. I was a trailblazer in the military. I mean, I was just known as such a little troublemaker because I was constantly pressuring the military to change its policies to be inclusive. So just because I wore a uniform, please do not put all of us that ever served the military in a box. We are our own individuals, and being a trailblazer and being able to take a pretty stoic organization like the United States Air Force aviation aspect of it and get it to fundamentally change for the better. And I say this all the time, the United States military is not better in spite of women, it is better because of women. The United States military isn't better in spite of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It is better because of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Because don't ask, don't tell.
What I'm saying is when we got rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the military became better because jets don't care who you are as a gender, jets don't care who you love. You want the best and the brightest in these organizations. So I put that on the back as a backdrop for who I am and what I've done my entire career. The second thing is when women were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, I was the generation that opened that door so women could go into combat. But the piece we missed was making sure that there were safety nets under them when they came back from serving their nation. And when there weren't, then those of us, me and the rest that I worked with, stood up to say, we got to fix that. So if that makes me a progressive because I was able to get progress done, then I guess I'm a progressive. If I am moderate because I don't think that the nation should have, 10 and $20 trillion worth of debt, and we should be fiscally responsible for funding things that are appropriate, that we should invest in our country, then that makes me a centrist. But I really want to caution the Dems on this call to not try to box us into these corners of labels. That's what gets us in trouble anyway. So what I would offer to you is that I am a leader and I have led progress in organizations that didn't want to progress very much. And I have worked very hard to set myself up so that I can represent all those that are in our district, not just those that vote for me. And I think that's the most important thing, Ed, and those that are on the call, is that you have to represent everyone that is in your district. And that's, I think, where the GOP struggles a lot. And we should not do that as Democrats. That's what makes us a great party, because we are very inclusive in our organization, and that's how we should stay.
Now, that being said, when we're talking about this campaign, whoever the Democratic nominee is, obviously you would support yourself. I mean, you would. But if your opponent, would you support your opponent?
Well, let me say this, Ed, much like the letter of agreement that we signed with Indivisible 24, we all signed an agreement that A, we wouldn't go negative, and that B, we would support whoever the nominee is. When I put my signature on a piece of paper and I give you my word, it is good for my word. So there is no doubt on that, Ed.
So you did sign it?
Absolutely.
Okay, because one of the things, questions that has been received was that, did you sign it or not? So I guess that takes care of that question. One of the questions that I have, and this is regarding the Black Lives Matter movement, because that's very dear to my heart. Seems like some people can't say Black Lives Matter. Can you say it?
Absolutely. Black Lives Matter. I was in 5 separate protests. So my team went out, we protested. I don't know if you've seen our campaign. Again, we sent invested in an entire mail out piece around that very subject, because I'm very, very passionate about that. So absolutely.
And as we're getting ready to go to a close at 5:45, we're coming up on our close. I'm pursuing my PhD degree, and it's in environmental justice. And I understand that you've done some work here in the environmental field. Could you speak to climate change?
Oh, Ed, you're now all over my passion. And I think that the environment is a national security issue. It just, and this is where it should lay in. When people have to move because the weather has gotten rid of their capacity to grow crops, when fires run you out because, you know, it is so dry, when we have floods and families and humanity is destabilized, it creates national security issues for everyone around the world. And it is just time we as a nation stand up and take our rightful place as we can do. We can get back into it at least. We could be leading in alternative energy, which would create higher paying jobs, getting rid of burning dirty coal, you know, move to other alternative energy sources. We could lead the agriculture. Besides energy, agriculture is the second most polluter in the world. And given that I'm an organic farmer and I have a sustainable farming practice, look, y'all, I have solar panels and I rain capture and I grow my food. And I just think there is so much we could do in this lane. And here's how I think that can happen, which can be a bipartisan work. I really believe, and bear with me on this, be patient, that if we could bring broadband internet to rural America and cities in America, that we can solve a lot of our problems. And let me just laundry list them for you. First of all, if we bring broadband in, or don't, just because you live in Dallas County doesn't mean you have access to broadband. A lot of families have to go to their library or their local community centers just to get broadband. And when we had to homeschool our kids, when you were trying to do telemedicine, you found that out real quick. It should be a public utility because it gives you access to the global platform so you can compete in the economy. It allows you to do telemedicine, which we discussed earlier. It gets you off the road so that you can work from home and help suppress the amount of carbon dioxide that's being released into the atmosphere. It allows you then to compete in schools, meaning homeschooling, doing CDCs, which continuing education, and even seek higher ed, and it opens that door for a lot more people. And the last thing it does, if we bring it out to where we grow our food, you can put artificial intelligence out there. People can use drones. You have less need for all the chemicals that go onto our land when we grow our food. It is a game changer if we can make that happen. And right now I talked to a company out in California that's doing home delivery of drones, if you will, and they're all battery powered. There's no diesel or any kind of fuel to it, in which they can carry almost 10,000 pounds. Think if we could get semis off the roads in order to free the roads up and help it be more safe for those of us out there and quicker with our delivery system, because I think more people are ending up shopping at home. And so this is an incredible opening that we have in our country to pivot if we can work on bringing broadband to all those families that are out there, including these in TX24.
All right. And we have one more question, and then we'll go to the closing. The question was was regarding Citizen United and big money into politics, and how do we go handle that? What do we do?
Well, I would offer to you, you can see what's happening in this race alone. You can watch what's unfolding before us. We have outside money, you know, from outside of our state. California or Seattle and DC, who are pouring money into this very race, almost $500,000 trying to influence Texas voters. And of course, you know, Texans, we'll decide. We have tenacity. Texas will pick its own representative. And so I'm pretty comfortable that we know who we want as a leader, because, you know, out of 7 in the primary, I won by 11 solid points. So I think the voters of TX24 have spoken. But in the bigger picture, getting dark money out of politics is about ending Citizens United. And I think that that campaign reform is something that we should do. Otherwise, what you see unfolding before us right now in this race is what happens all the time. And it really should be those folks that live in this district should decide who their leaders are, not people in DC, not people in, I don't care where you've come from. It should be the citizens of this district and the state that decide who they want to represent them. And I'm very proud that we have raised money without any corporate input to us, that we take no corporate PAC money, and that 60% 90% of the money we raised, and we've set records raising money in this district, have come from Texans. And that, I think, is very telling to what people want in their leaders. So yes, you're right. You're going to have to get the Supreme Court to change the End Citizens United, to, reverse the End Citizens United aspect.
Well, we're almost at a close. And as always on the Commiss Radio Show, I always like to, have the candidates to give a close. Why should we vote for you? And any other closing comments you want to make? Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you, Ed. I appreciate Heather. And of course, my dear friend Deb, who's over there in Tarrant County. And I just want to recap really quick where we are. As you know, early voting started today and we were on the polls all morning long. And it was very, very interesting to watch people come and vote. And we had these vote safe kits, which I'm gonna show right here. And because we're concerned, there it is, because we're concerned about our campaign, invested in that. And we invested in that because I think it's so important, y'all, that we practice and do the voting in this COVID world, as challenging as she is, that we get our voices heard, and that I'm hopeful that you will see that you don't have to choose between your health and your vote, that we're doing everything in our power to make it safe for you to vote. And we pushed out almost 2,500 of them. We're going to do another 2,500. So instead of lip dropping and knocking on doors, we're handing these out. And if you go to kimforcongress.org, you can order one and we will bring it right to your door, because we so believe in this democracy. That's number one. Number two is this campaign, like it did in the primary, invested in 10,000 in the primary. We invested in 10,000 new registers. And of the 10,000, 46% were minorities. So we are so committed to expanding the electorate. We just think that is so critical for people to have a voice in this incredible democracy that we have. And this time in the runoff, we invested in 10,000 mail-in ballots, those that were 65 and older, because you guys know that the court struck down Texas being able to mail in for everybody. And of those, we've had a 40% return on them, which means people want their voices heard. And so we as a team, again, invested in that to make sure that voters could get their voices heard. And we're really proud, and we're chasing those down. And the other thing about that is Texas isn't a big mail-in ballot state. And so it's important that the ballot board practice counting large number of mail-in ballots. And just to give you a frame of reference, in TX24, 23,000 people could vote by mail, and only 3,000 did in the primary. Really hard for folks to mail in those ballots. So if you haven't mailed in your ballot yet, please get it in, because you do want your voice heard. It's so critical to this runoff, because we have a Senate, railroad, and a congressional women up for this. But it's also important that we do this so we're ready for November, because this is going to be the election of the life of our democracy. It truly is. And I will tell you, as one who was schooled by the military, one who, those of you that know, 3 master's degree, we study this very thing and why democracies fail. And they normally fail from within. And I'm here to tell you, you send the right leader to Congress, you get the person who has the political will, the experience, and the battle-tested grit, and we will keep this democracy, and we will make it even better than what she is today. And I'm Kim Olson, and I want to be your Congresswoman for TX24.
All right. Thank you, Kim. We appreciate your time today. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it back off to my colleague and my mentor, Deborah Peoples. Deborah, you still there? Let's kick it over to Deborah. Kim, are you still there?
Have Deborah
Heather,
unmuted.
yeah, does Heather want to come up and close us out? And thank you very, very much for doing this, Heather. We sure appreciate you. And again, Ed Gray, you got to have me back on that radio show whenever you get it up and going again, sir.
We will. You know, this is the great thing about Zoom, that you have these moments right here where you just have to ad lib. So Heather,
There you go.
Can you hear me now?
there.
Yeah, so Deborah had to drop off really quick. She had an emergency call. I don't know if y'all can hear me. So she is not on to send us off. So Ed, if you wouldn't mind signing us off, that would be great.
All right, so we'd like to go ahead and thank you guys for, ladies and gentlemen, for coming aboard here to this great virtual town hall. As you know, the elections have just started today. We're into a 2-week period in which we can go ahead and elect our next congressperson from TX24. We are now at an opportunity to change America. And when we elect our next representative from TX24, we can begin to change Texas to the right color that it needs to be. It needs to be blue. It needs to be blue because blue is the color of democracy in this state. So we'd like to again thank you for tuning in. And also, Heather, as we'll go ahead and go to a close, if you could let everyone know how they can contact Kim through social media, that'll be great, and we'll bail out.
Awesome, thanks Ed. So if you're on the chat or if you're on our Facebook live stream, we did enter in the social media links. You can reach Kim at kimforcongress.org on her website. And also on Facebook, Kim can be reached at facebook.com/Kim for Congress, and on Twitter, Kim Olson TX, and Instagram, Kim Olson TX. If anyone has any questions for us at the Tarrant County Democratic Party, just want everybody to know that you can send an email to info@tarrantdemocrats.org, or you can reach us on the website, tarrantdemocrats.org. Anyways, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Ed Gray, for moderating, and Kim's team. Y'all are awesome. And get out there and vote. Vote, vote, vote. Voting started today for the primary runoff. And of course, the last day to vote will be July 14th, Election Day. Yes, wear your masks. Get your safe, that Kim's demonstrating for us, wear your mask. If you did not get a safe or vote safe kit from Kim's campaign, the link is in the chat, so you can get one. So vote, wear your mask, and be safe, everybody. Thank you very much. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Be well.